It's being called one of the worst child neglect cases in Ohio's history. 16 children living in filth inside a rural home. And the most disturbing part, the community around them had no idea. Or did they? What we're about to uncover is a story of systemic failure, missed opportunities, and how the most horrific conditions can hide behind a perfectly normal facade. On June 30th, 2026, investigators executed a search warrant at a home in Hamden, Ohio, a small village in Vinton County. What they found inside would shake an entire county. The state attorney general's office called the scene almost indescribable. A sheriff with decades on the job said it was one of the worst things he'd ever witnessed. 16 children, ranging in age from 18 months to 18 years old, were living inside the home. Authorities say most of them were confined to a single 12 by 12 room in a house with only one bathroom for 20 people. Investigators described the children as having limited ability to communicate. Some couldn't communicate at all. 4 adults, Nasty, the children's parents and grandparents, Yorkowski, now face felony child endangerment charges. Initial charges were 16 counts each. More recent court filings allege a combined total of 68 felony counts across the 4 defendants. All 4 have pleaded not guilty. The real question haunting investigators is far more troubling. How did this happen for years in a village of fewer than 800 people without anyone stepping in? We've gathered reporting from the ground, court records, interviews with community members, and a timeline of the family's movements before they were discovered. What it reveals is how even a close-knit community can completely miss the signs. Hamden is a village of about 700 people in one of Ohio's smallest counties. Everyone was talking about the family, gas station clerks, business owners, food bank volunteers, but here's the paradox. Almost nobody knew what was really happening behind closed doors. According to earlier field reporting from the area, a local pastor who ran a food distribution ministry said the children's grandmother had been coming to collect provisions for roughly 2 years. She was polite, well-presented, cordial. She'd arrive with a couple of the grandchildren, sometimes with her husband. By his account, she came across as the image of a caring family matriarch. What he found especially strange looking back was how quiet the children were around her. They'd whisper to their grandmother but wouldn't communicate with anyone else. He said he'd even started giving her extra food once she mentioned having 16 grandchildren, before eventually wondering how that many children could possibly fit in one home. The food being distributed was substantial: fresh fruit, pasta, meat, produce. Yet reports from a local store's employees indicated the family was also purchasing large quantities of cooking oil, which some speculated may have been used to pack extra calories into limited meals. Property records describe the Hamden home as roughly 1,300 square feet with 5 rooms and a single bathroom. For a household, investigators say numbered 20 people. First responders reportedly said the floor was so deteriorated from filth that they nearly fell through it while responding. According to earlier reporting on the family's history at a previous residence, a person who toured that property after it was vacated described conditions so extreme that the flooring needed to be replaced. The wood had been soaked through over time. An attic space reportedly contained piles of children's clothing left behind. That same reporting mentioned some interior doors having padlocks on them, a detail that, if accurate, only came to light after the family had already moved on. People who lived just houses away say they had no idea of the severity of what was allegedly happening inside. This is what makes the case so difficult to comprehend. 2 completely contradictory realities existed at once. On one side, a grandmother collecting food donations, presenting as a concerned caregiver, children reportedly seen waving to neighbors, a family that was, at least occasionally, visible in the community. On the other side, investigators describing conditions they called worse than how livestock are kept. 7 of the children were taken to Columbus area hospitals. At least 2 were airlifted, with 1 in intensive care. How could both of these realities exist in the same household? Some neighbors say they'd seen the children with their grandmother and thought nothing was wrong. Others say they never saw children at the property at all and had no idea anyone that young was living there. The family was in the community, but not really of it. They left the house sometimes. People saw them, but how close did anyone actually get? Court filings and news reporting name 4 family members, the 2 grandparents and the 2 parents. All four have pleaded not guilty and were held on $300,000 bond each. One of the grandfathers has since been released on a recognizance bond after a medical episode in custody. His attorney has filed a competency motion, and he's now required to wear a GPS monitor. Competency evaluations have also been raised for other family members as the case proceeds. The courts will ultimately decide whether anyone is unfit to stand trial. The father is also facing a separate case, 4 misdemeanor counts of indecent exposure tied to incidents reported in May involving people outside the household. That case is proceeding on its own track. Officials have called this an intra-family situation, meaning the adults charged are all relatives of one another, and according to an attorney for the mother, all 16 children are hers. According to the local school district, there are no records showing any of the children were ever enrolled in classes. Earlier reporting on the family's history elsewhere in the state referenced a truancy complaint from several years back, when a handful of the children were of school age but weren't attending. If accurate, that would represent a moment when a school system had a legal opening to intervene, and this reporting suggests lost track of the family before it could follow through. Whether that specific complaint holds up in the current case's record is still something worth verifying against Vinton County's own filings, but the broader picture is consistent. Officials say the children appear to have gone essentially undetected by any school system for years. Court records point to ties for this family going back roughly 2 decades, moving between several counties before landing in Hamden. Investigators believe the children were kept in that 12 by 12 room for close to 4 years. Birth records reportedly show the children were born over an 18-year span, meaning whoever is their mother would have been giving birth almost annually for nearly 2 decades. The question's still facing investigators. Who else, if anyone, knew the full extent of what was happening? Were there other moments, like the school truancy case, where the system had a chance to intervene? Was there a single person directing the household, or was responsibility shared? Is the mother also, in some sense, a victim? Family members have suggested she may have been indoctrinated from a young age. She was reportedly married as a young teenager, years before the birth of her first known child. A close relative told reporters the extended family was horrified by what came out, and that the family has since received death threats as the case has drawn national attention. People can't let this story go. Despite the case still working through the courts, the public is fixated on understanding how this happened. Maybe it's the scale, 16 children in one small home. Maybe it's the violation of an assumption most of us hold about small towns, that in a place where everyone supposedly knows everyone, someone would have noticed. Or maybe it's simpler than that. People want to understand how something like this reaches the point of an ICU admission and an airlift before anyone steps in. And often there isn't a tidy answer, just a long chain of small missed signals that, in hindsight, look obvious. What's your take on this case? Drop a comment below. Have you ever lived somewhere where something felt slightly off, but you couldn't quite put your finger on why?